as a result of the country's mature hydrocarbon activity. While the process will trap CO2 underground, it can also stimulate business with the CO2 used to stimulate oil production. This method of enhanced oil recovery not only can give longevity of life to mature wells, but it can also trap and store carbon emissions beneath the Earth's surface, thereby removing it from the atmosphere. The country's existing pipeline network can also play a part in facilitating this type of activity. There continues to be investment opportunities in the creation of energy services companies that specialize in energy audits, feasibility studies for better energy performances in both industrial and residential sectors, the creation of industrial companies producing renewable energy equipment and components, and investment in infrastructure to ensure that CNG is readily available. Now, the local FDI picture tells us why we need to rigorously attract investment. According to the Central Bank's Summary of Economic Indicators, in 2004, there was 973 million US in FDI, while in 2009, the figure declined to 511 million US dollars. 2009 has seen the lowest FDI over the 5-year period. Now, we ask ourselves, how do we attract investment? While there are few success stories in Trinidad and Tobago as it relates to renewable energy, energy efficiency, and environmental services, there remains a need for much more private sector investment. In order to ensure this happens, industry cooperation is essential. Government-industry trust is also important to attract investment and ensures infrastructure and the right legal and institutional regimes are put in place. Industry initiatives can significantly improve efficiency, which would in turn attract investment. And 2 examples of this would be the Safe to Work project and the EICDI initiative. We also need to harness the financing of the multilaterals and the development banks. While governments do have a central role to play in shaping a business environment that encourages the increasing use of environmentally friendly technologies, financial innovation by market participants is also required. This is particularly the case in developing countries. At times, financial institutions evaluate applications that have renewable energy technology as being too risky, without taking into account the full economic and environmental advantages of investment into these technologies. The Energy Chamber of Trinidad and Tobago envisions the country as a potential energy services hub of the region, able to export our energy sector expertise to other markets. But in order to sustain our growth, we must boost our competitiveness, attract internal and external investment, bolster the industry's skill set through training and education, and consequently, search for opportunities to capitalize on our markets. The Energy Chamber would like to thank the organizers of this project for giving us a chance to participate. We look forward to doing all that is necessary to ensure that this project results in mutually beneficial gains for all stakeholders.
Thank you, Priya. At this time, I would like to invite Ruth Mandley and Priya to join us at the head table while we invite Mr. David Ramjohn, Krishna Kumar Singh, and Mr. Ethan Horton to join us at the head table. Mr. David Ramjohn, Executive Technical Assistant to the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of the Environmental Management Authority, will now present on the environmental benefits of carbon management.
Distinguished speakers, I would like to acknowledge the presence of Mr. Richard Ledu, the project coordinator for the Green Fund, and of course, Mr. Kishan Kumar Singh, who's head of the Multilateral Environmental Agreements Unit and interim director of the Basel Regional Convention Center. Okay. I am here on behalf of my managing director and CEO, Dr. Jyot Singh, who was unavoidably unable to be here. We are going to be presenting to you on the environmental benefits of carbon management. Now, this could be a very short presentation. Actually, it could just be maybe 2 or 3 slides and just emphasize some of the key points that many of my previous colleagues have mentioned. But I think I want to try to take a different spin on on this. And the outline I have for the presentation is as follows. We want to look at the carbon emissions on a global and local scale, the issue of global warming and climate change, carbon management in the local context in terms of policy, legislation, and so on, carbon trading, global and local, and then we get to environmental benefits of carbon management, and you'll see why I placed it there. Carbon management, how do we do it? And if we have some time, to look at some private sector opportunities across the board, not just in the energy sector, but all the sectors. I must admit that having Mr. Kumar Singh here with me is very encouraging, because he actually is the representative for the government of Trinidad and Tobago to the UNFCCC, which is the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, and he has actually chaired the subsidiary body looking at the science behind climate change. So first, let's look at the global picture in terms of carbon emissions, and these are data that were presented in the fourth assessment report of the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. And the reason I'm putting this up really is to give you a sectoral analysis of the numbers that you've all been hearing. And if you look at it, of course, from 1970 to 2004, which is what these data are representing, it shows the increase that everybody knows about, everybody talks about, but where is it coming from? You can see that the major contributor for carbon emissions, and I'm not looking at all global greenhouse gases, I'm looking at carbon. That's the purpose of this presentation and this project. It comes from fossil fuel use. And of course, we know that Trinidad and Tobago is a major user of fossil fuels. CO2 also comes, however, from land use changes, deforestation, decay. If you convert from forested area to farmland or urban centers, then you affect the flux in carbon from land sources. So if you look at it also from the sector side, which is what graph C is showing, you see that energy supply, well, this thing is very sensitive, energy supply, industry, forestry and agriculture, and transportation. And transportation, when we look at some further data, you'll see that comes from aviation and maritime industry. That's what the data are being collected from. And a lot of that comes from tourism. And you'll see in one of the graphs that we're actually impacted by things outside of our control. So it's really across the board in terms of private sector influence and impact. Drilling down into the data for Trinidad and Tobago from the center, the Carbon Dioxide Information Analysis Center of the U.S. Department of Energy, looking at emissions for Trinidad and Tobago for the year 2007, which is the latest year that they have complete data for. Looking at the various emission sources, of course, you see fossil fuel, gas fuels and liquid fuels. They have none for solid fuels and none for gas flaring. I have a little question about that. I don't know how the data are being reported. But look at cement production and aviation and maritime transport. They all show up on the chart. Again, if we analyze those data from 2007, and this is out of 215 countries that were included in the data, on a per capita basis, we are ranked 6th, 7.58. That should be tons, sorry, not thousands of tons, of carbon per capita, metric tons. And in terms of the absolute emissions, out of 215 countries, we are ranked 70th. So looking at these data in terms of the numbers, you'll see that there's a difference in terms of our rank on a per capita basis versus our rank on an absolute emissions basis. Now the argument is the climate does not react to per capita emissions. But we still have a responsibility, don't we? Looking at our fossil fuel emissions, data spans from 1908 up to 2007. And you can begin to see some